therefore we never had them in our aquariums. But it's found in deeper water. I was able to see these on several occasions. I finally able to take a photograph of one for him. It was a great moment for me. This ability to connect a couple of his loves and hobbies, fish, photography, and just being present in nature. Another of his interests was mechanics. Dad built a small railway from a canoe, which was a great activity to watch for all the neighborhood children. We were only allowed to watch, Les reminded us. This train mesmerized us as children, but also as adults watching him go around and around. And also the detail. He added so much detail that it was quite remarkable. Once he stopped keeping the aquariums, it was then time to really concentrate on this railway. It really was something he had a passion for. And he started really getting into the miniature furniture, the lights, all the electrics for it. And he even found a special moss in Barbados that he was able to use to mimic the grass. He would even go as far as going to Joe's River to find the sand that's there in the river itself. It was filtered by the rainwater, by the stream, and almost had the exact same scale that would then match the ballast stone for the railway.
A man of many talents. He thought we were finished with his talents, but Dad was somewhat of an accomplished carpenter as well. He could build anything from beds to shelves, parts for the train, and Peter's playpen back in Zambia. He sanded each piece carefully to ensure no harm to his son, pun intended. Harm could also cook and bake. His close family and friends spent countless occasions savoring his pancakes, not crepes.
Or the American flapjack type. These were Harm's pancakes. Like everything he did, he meticulously studied the best ratios of flour, milk, egg, even how much butter and how hot to get the pan. The combination of toppings was also to note. Aisha, our sister, says that the Harm's pancakes with fried sausages, cheese, and pancake syrup is part of who she is today. She tells her friends often of this combination. But it was not just the food items, it was the feeling you had. During these pancake meals, the atmosphere was relaxed. There was no formal anything. It was a simple meal with friends and family, the kind that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. It is to be noted that Dad rarely wore a shirt at home, even when guests came. Always casual in the tropics.
And Dad could also eat. At university, they nicknamed him the hamster because of his tendency to fill his cheeks with food. Some would have called him the dustbin as well instead of the Dutchman because he would eat anything. Mm-hmm. Any leftovers Peter and I had, he would eat. Once, Joan and I made a cake. We wanted a chocolate cake. And we decided to put food coloring in because food coloring makes things pretty. The cake came out 1 inch thick, rubbery, and an awful green. No one wanted to taste this cake, except for Dad. We made such an effort to make something, he just had to taste it, and it actually tasted quite good. There was also a time Peter was learning to cook, and went by the directions for cooking a macaroni exactly. It said to salt the water, and so he did. I'm so sorry, Peter. I couldn't eat it. Mm-hmm. But Dad did. His son cooked for him, and he would eat it all.
I would like to add that my cooking has improved.
Tremendously.
So through this initial encouragement, I went on to try many different dishes. And although thinking back on this, it may have also been a way for him to maximize some evening time making improvements to his model railways and trains and tracks. So I would do that cooking. One Sunday a month, Dad and his friends would get together, eat a good meal, play cards, a game called Oh Hell, and have a good laugh. His friends nicknamed him God Verdama. They could not pronounce Gat Verdama, a Dutch expletive Dad would explain at times during the game.
He also loved books. He had books everywhere. To my dismay once, when Daddy was reading one of my books, he opened it fully. He had this tendency that he would run his finger down the crease, he would open it, run his crease down. I was like, Dad, you're mashing up my book. His reply was, books need to look as if they've been read. So all of our books look as if they've been read.
Many times.
He was so versatile and multifaceted. He could speak Dutch, English, French, and Spanish, and could even understand German. He played the piano, loved hiking and biking. He would take apart his bike at the airport, take it to wherever he was traveling by plane, and when landed, put it back together and ride to whoever's friend's house he was going to at the time. He'd ride from London all over England to Dover to get the ferry to Holland. and then from the location in Holland, he would then ride over to family.
He was a fixture on the National Trust or Duke of Edinburgh World hikes. Thanks for those that came today. Participating mainly on the medium hikes. Through these hikes, he was exposed to the nooks and crannies of Barbados that few never really get to see. He was always happy to take us and our friends around driving to see some of the more accessible ones. He delighted showing overseas friends that visited these areas as well. The hikes also allowed him to engage in his passion for conversation. He was a very curious person and always interested in the people around him and their lives. His curiosity really was never ending. He encouraged it in us and his granddaughter Olivia. Dad really loved to inspect her Lego creations. He even indulged her in keeping a lizard. So Olivia managed to catch a baby lizard, and the two of them tried to keep it in an old aquarium, Dad going as far as to try to catch flies to try to feed it. He really encouraged her creativity. If she wanted tape or anything that she could use, just give it to her. Whatever to keep that curiosity going.
Our dear friend Patrick Bethel will speak to Dad's work with the sugar industry. But I must mention here that Patrice Cadet sent us an email reminding us that he and Dad, while working together, had discovered a new species of plant parasitic nematode, which Patrice went on to include Dad's name in, the Tropheurus de Boeri, which Patrice subsequently published a short paper on. He lived the majority of his life in the tropics, and one thing every home we lived in had to have a hammock. It was his best means to relax, and his love of life, the earth, and nature showed best in his passion for agriculture. Did you know de Boer means the farmer? How fitting for such an amazing life journey.
There's so much to tell about our father. He was far more incredible than we really knew. This is clear from all the messages we have received.
And we've received quite a few. We would like to express a special thank you to Yvette. Her tireless care of our dad, making sure his meals were varied. He loved to eat what she cooked, especially her sandwiches. And made sure his mind was fed with hours of conversation. It was good for both of them. She made sure that he met his weekly Skype appointments with Mark and Maurice, whom he made friends with while working as a volunteer for the Vale of Roydal steam train in Wales. And Dirk, his Dutch friend he met in his first years in Barbados.
Here as well, we'd also really like to thank Paulette Brooms and the staff at the View Senior Citizens Home for the care, love, and the jokes they gave our dad during his time with them. I wanted to share the last sentence from a Native American grief blessing. Sorry. May you walk gently through the world, keeping your loved ones with you always, knowing that you are never parted in the beating of your heart.
Dad, I will miss our conversations. You were my rock in the tsunamis and hurricanes of life. Oh, just get on with it, man. I can hear him saying this quite often. So we must get on with it and close this chapter. The book continues and new chapters will start.
Thank you. Thanks, Uncle Lance.
We want to thank Peter and Tanya for that very, very insightful look at harm. Just before we have a tribute by Patrick Bethel, permit me to read yet another poem which fits this special occasion and also would have met with the approval of harm. It's a poem by Christina Rossetti, which reads as follows. Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I have turned to go, yet turn and stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me, you understand. It'll be late to counsel then or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave, a vestige of the thoughts that once I had Better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. Patrick Bethel.
Good morning, all. Dame Maisie, Peter, Olivia. I walk with a set of books, and I'm not going to give you a lecture on all these books. Don't worry. But they're important part of the discussion. Tanya and Peter have covered Harm the family man, the researcher. I've been asked to say a few words on what he did in agriculture in Barbados. That's not possible. Harm was a pillar to the sugar industry. In its transition period from, you can use the word fork and hoe, to modern mechanized agriculture. During the late 70s, 80s, we went through this stage, and that created a tremendous amount of challenge. And when Harm came here, he first understudied the late Dr. Hudson, to take over the leadership of the Agricultural Research Unit and to lead the research in agriculture. Harm's focus were twofold on his work. How do we increase the amount of sugar per acre? And how do we do it for less expense? I use the word sugar per acre. You all may say, well, cane per acre. A farmer sells sugar. The sugar is in his cane. So if we can usually increase the cane yields, theoretically we can increase the sugar yields. But we have to do that at an economic cost. And that was what Harm's whole career was. Increase yields, reduce costs. And the first large expansion was a 30-acre plot at Groves in St. George, where together with Dr. Sandra Bellamy, Yvette Samuels, and Ferdinand Worrell, they laid out that plot, which was originally sugarcane fields, into what it is today. Harm himself did a lot of the driving of the tractor and setting it up and working 8 days a week to get it done. The purpose of that plot was to demonstrate to the farming community best practices and what could be achieved. That was one purpose. The other purpose was to provide an area where we could select new varieties of sugarcane. What is not known or may realize, you drive around Barbados and see, well, it's sad to see it nowadays, and Harm would not like to see it. 20,000 seedlings a year, approximately, Dr. Stout, you can help me, are released every year of new seeds of sugarcane. These have to be taken and planted in fields, then they have to be selected. You have to grow them, and you select them for different characteristics. People don't realize that, 20,000 plus, and some days it was 30,000. It takes then 13 years between the selection of that seedling to a commercial variety. And during that time, a lot of work goes on in that process. So that station was set up first to expand the variety and selection, and to also show best practices. And although large areas of the farm was in variety of the canes which would never see the light of day, in many cases, the yields from that research station per acre exceeded several of the commercial farming entities in Barbados. And that is a tremendous tribute to Harm and his team. Failure was not a word that I've ever heard Harm use. I don't think it existed in his vocabulary. And he was a hands-on person. I first met him in 1982, and we were doing some research work, and as you said, you know, but it has to work. Why is it not working? We have to make it work. Yes, Harm? And believe you me, many times he succeeded where we would have not pursued. In addition to that, another 30 acres was established at Golden Ridge. But I come back, and that was again to expand the program and to do research into fuel and fiber cane. Normal sugar cane does not have a lot of fiber in it. You're producing it for sugar. It was felt that there could be another stream of revenue for the sugar industry if we could produce a high fiber cane or fuel cane, which could be used at the factory to generate more bagasse, to then generate more electricity, to have a complete circle. So you get more revenue, the farmer gets more. And 200 acres were actually planted in Barbados of that type project. It proved that with the present harvesting and transport system, it was not economical. But for some reason, beyond at our pay scale, the project was abruptly stopped, and it should never have stopped. It should have been kept on. But the 30 acres at Golden Ridge, which was leased then for the ART, again was developed largely by harm. And one of the requirements is you have to have a supply of water for the young seedlings. If you don't apply water within 5 days, they will die. But there's no water out there. So harm developed a pond filled with runoff water. Now, those of us who create ponds know that you puddle it. If you can wet the clay and you roll a tractor on it up and down, it seals it. Harm didn't wait on the tractor. He drove his L200 down in the pond, through the water, and puddling it. How he got it out, I don't know. But that was Harm. He didn't wait on nobody. I have to get this pond, I need water, and we're going to get it worked. So his first focus was on strip tillage, because cultivation is probably most expensive part in growing sugarcane. And you will see, as you still see today, unfortunately, tractors pulling a big harrow, turning the soil over continuously. Soil is a microorganism that's living. It's bacteria, fungi, earthworms, the works. It is a living medium. And when you keep turning it like that, you expose it to the ultraviolet rays of the sun, and you kill out that microflora. Many of our soils in the sugar industry today are sterile, and they need to be re-inoculated. In the US, it's estimated that if you do zero tillage versus conventional tillage, it takes the soil 20 years to re-establish a healthy medium. But we persist in doing the old process. So what is strip tillage? Basically, you go down where the cane row was, and you only cultivate that area for the new planting. You leave the trash cover on the field, which does several things. It protects the soil from our terrible rain. It suppresses weeds, and it enhances the organic matter into the soil. And in particular, it reduces the cost of cultivation dramatically. The traditional method is a harrow, 2 ways, a tractor with a plow, 2 ways, or close plow it, then to furrow it. With strip tillage, 1 pass, then you furrow it, and then you plant it. And you use a fraction of the equipment required and diesel. Regrettably, there's only 1 farm in Barbados that has practiced strip tillage continuously for the past 20 plus years with no adverse effects. But Harm didn't focus on strip tillage. Oh no. It would take me a long time to go through what he did, but I'll just summarize. Soil decompaction. With the advent of agricultural equipment in our fields, our soils get like this road. So he worked on that to see how we could decompact it. Soil drainage for a better rainfall, getting it. Erosion control. Nutrition. The fertilizer regime that is used today was also developed by Harm. The weed control and mechanical control. Pest and disease control. And I brought this book to show you, you might be able to see it, but at the very front is a picture of the strip tillage, a perfect example where the fields are well established, no weeds, and at a fraction of the cost. Harm also recognized that the older farmers of this country had a lot to offer. The practices that they developed over the hundreds of years couldn't just be thrown out the window. And so he liaised with the older generation to see how he could bring the techniques and practices they use into the modern agriculture. He was successful in some of these, some could not be transferred. But he also kept in contact worldwide with leading agronomists throughout the world. He published several scientific papers, against Caribbean and throughout the world. And he believed that his knowledge should also be shared to the younger generation, and produced a booklet for children on agriculture and why do you cultivate fields, why do you do this, why do you do that. But his greatest legacy is the information that he left with us. And I brought 3 things for you, which I'm not going to read it all about. But this book was a folder that was originally supplied by DaCosta and Musson. And all of the research papers that were put out at the RVTU were sent out to the farmers. And the idea behind it is that the farmer would put this in his folder and he would have it for future reference. And the idea was that when a farmer manager was transferred from one farm to another, this book would be left at the farm. I don't believe there are many copies around today. As you can see, mine is pretty yellow and well read. But recognizing that farmers are traditionally very conservative, reluctant to change, and will tell you that, well, there are research people that are writing books, what I know nothing about running a farm. Oh, what I know. Harm also produced this booklet, which will be for the Barbados Agriculture Management Company. Sugarcane Growers Manual. There were 500 editions published and then a subsequent 200 run on this. And it just shows you and encompasses the work of such people as Dr. Hudson, Ian Walker, Dr. Allen, Dr. Rowe, Michael Clark, other people who have been leaders in agriculture research in Barbados. And some of the contents: soils and land preparation, rainfall, planting, nutrition, weed control, pests and diseases, harvest, cost reduction. So Harm touched the entire gamut of what is taken to grow sugarcane, and also a lot of it is applied to other agriculture. So we got, first of all, the Blue Book. Then we got some of these. And then the last book was this one, which is Sugarcane Farming in Barbados, which was produced by the Agricultural Research and Development, funded by that, edited by Dr. Bellamy and Gerald Proverbs. And a lot of the work in here comes from work that Harm did many years ago. So his work, his effort continues onwards. I just want to digress a bit. Peter talked about the train set, but he didn't do it justice. Peter, sorry. Many of us young boys would have had a little train set. You know, a little thing that goes around a circle. And we feel smart. You put on 2 things and you put a big rock or a tunnel. But it's still going around a circle. No. This thing occupied a large room. And it had divergent tracks, lights, houses. I mean, several things that I couldn't believe. As Peter said, he even shopped around to find the right moss to put on it to look like a lawn. Special rocks to put in at the various areas. And when I looked at it, I said, you know, when he moves, what happens? Because this thing is like an artwork. It's not only just something to take your mind off of what you're doing, but it was creative. I mean, I've never seen and experienced such a train set ever. I mean, I see some nodding in the crowd, and I know they have seen it too. But Harm's work was not unnoticed, and he was awarded the Silver Crown of Merit by the government of Barbados for his contribution to agriculture and to the sugar industry. Incidentally, it's the highest award that anybody in agriculture, as far as I'm aware, has received so far. You know, we say that every morning you eat your breakfast, some farmer has fed you, and we say it's important. I don't ain't seen anybody marks the farmer yet. You know, I haven't seen that yet, or the most honorable Sir Farmer. Maybe we'll get there one of these days. But Peter, Tanya, Olivia, you're proud of your father and grandfather. He set you an example that is hard to follow. May you rest in peace and rise in glory. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly, I do hope that the most honorable will be applied, even if posthumously, and then later on to the Bethel family. Thank you very much again. Incidentally, at one time in my previous life, I have to say previous life, because I am now viewed as an historian, but I spent some of the early working years at the cane breeding station at Grove St. George, working with an agronomist, Dr. McCall, who eventually migrated back to Scotland, and also D.I.T. Walker. In those days, some of the early varieties of cane I was familiar with. BH 1012 was one of the early varieties, and certainly we used to call some of that juicy cane. You don't have much of that nowadays, but I was not aware, as I should have been, of the amount of work that Ham did in the sugarcane industry, because I left the cane breeding station and then went into work as a laboratory technician. That's strange. I don't know how I became a historian after that background, but that's how it was. And incidentally, Tanya, when you were speaking about the fish, I was surprised. I was not aware that you were afraid of frays and thousands. I was not aware of that at all. Of course, frays have departed from our, you don't have to be afraid anymore. We used to get fray cakes, but you don't see them anymore. That's gone. Nevertheless, at this time, I want to invite Sonia, my sister, and I think you're accompanied by Yolande, yes, to offer tribute, but also permit me to bring greetings to you, Tanya and Peter, from my son, Dr. Pedro A.J. Welch, Jr., your contemporary and very good friend. Sonia and Yolande.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's so good to see all of you here to share with us in the memories of a truly amazing man, Patrick Bethel. Thank you so much for that. Yo. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the Welch and Barker clan in memoriam of, I'll say it, Haram, not Haram, Haram. That's what the Dutch say it. Haram Herod de Boer. Haram from, I used to call him H the B to get away from saying anything else. Haram from Arnhem in Holland made an indelible entry into the Welch and Barker family circle in Barbados when in 1974 he married Yolande Patience Wanda Welch, whom he met in England in 1972 when they were both studying there. Of course, many have made fun of what his Dutch name conveyed in English. Sir Wes Hall, the master of ceremonies at the wedding reception at Kew House, quipped that her mother had done her best to keep her out of harm's way, but clearly had not succeeded. Both Pedro, the late Pedro, and Maisie were clearly won over by the dapper Dutchman and extended both love and friendship to him. They cared for him deeply, and Mommy wants you to know how deeply she cared for Haram. This was the start of a long-lasting, warm relationship between Haddam and the Welch and Barker families that continued over the years until his recent death. Once married in 1975, he introduced Yolande to Africa through his assignment in Munilunga in northwestern Zambia. Yolande intrigued the family with stories of life in Africa, learning African customs and dances, eating African dishes, including flying ants that she did not eat, but they ate. And of course, producing a son born in Africa, Peter. There are many anecdotes of that period, too many to recount. You heard the one about the hippo. Mom was privileged also to make her first visit to Africa to visit them. She went to Munilunga, and in fact, recently Neville Isdell, who lives here now, former CEO of Coca-Cola, I think it is, he told Mom that she and he were the only two in Barbados to know Munilunga, because he apparently lived in Munilunga. Yeah. That was nearly 50 years ago, long before the current Barbadian honeymoon with Africa, both Yolande and Mommy. Likewise, Haddam also introduced Yolande to Holland, where Tanya was born, and then to Jamaica. It was my turn to make my first visit to Jamaica to visit Haddam and Yolande and the family in the 80s. When he relocated to Barbados after that, he immersed himself into sugarcane technology through our long-standing family friend, Colin Hudson, having many long discussions and debates with Dad, Pedro, on all aspects of that important industry. His friends became our friends, and vice versa. One such special friend was the late Jerry Hagelberg. Anybody who knows anything about sugar would know Jerry. And you can't forget Jerry, because he and Haddam were like twins. Haddam made it his business to seek to understand everything about Barbados, including politics, seeking out discussions with various family members. At times, we felt he knew more about Barbados than we did, and Patrick Bella just proved that, as he referred to the awarding of the Barbados Silver Crown of Merit, which is for a highly meritorious service of achievement worthy of national recognition. Haddam and his brothers and sister-in-law, ourselves, have shared a long-lasting and deep appreciation for one another. My brother, Pedro Lance, we call him Lance at home, recollects that when he first met Haddam in 1974, they hit it off immediately. Noting that at first, Haddam seemed a little stiff, but in a very short while, he turned out to have a wicked sense of humor. Not the raucous humor of the average Bayesian, but a humor that was universal. He was honored when he was asked to be best man at the wedding. He recounts that subsequently, he was at the point of decision as to whether to become a full-time student at University of the West Indies or to give up his studies altogether, mainly for financial reasons. And he told Yolande about his predicament. Haddam, on learning of the matter, immediately provided him with the initial financial assistance that he needed. Pedro Lance states that he is eternally grateful for Haddam's beneficence, and that his journey towards the positions of dean, deputy principal, and professor at University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, are in large measure due to Haddam's timely assistance. Pedro Lance reflects that he and Haddam continue to have the most fraternal of relationships over the years, and he has assured that Haddam's children, Peter and Tanya, and their mother, Yolande, as well as his granddaughter, little Olivia, will always be in his prayers. Our brother Peter, who lives in Geneva, has said that what he sensed about Haram's purpose was that there is always something that binds us all together as human beings, no matter who we are. In his view, Haram achieved that mission, binding us together even now. I was touched and surprised when he went to Malaysia on an assignment, and on return he brought me a fan made of turtle shell. Remember that I was a collector of fans. He surprised me. I didn't even know he remembered or realized that. I still have it. There are so many things we could say about Haram, including his boundless generosity. We have heard the many trains and train stations that he meticulously built made us want to buy tickets to travel on them. They were so good. The close relationship shared has led to many treasurable moments that will remain in our memory. Himself a lover of music, in addition to everything else you heard, he was seduced by the music of Scott Joplin, which you may have heard when you came into the chapel, a Black American composer and pianist dubbed the King of Ragtime, played by his mother-in-law, my mother, Dame Maisie. When she gifted him a book of Joplin's music, he was delighted and spent many moments following his passion. He confessed that he preferred her foot on the piano pedal to her foot on the gas pedal of her car, the latter causing him moments of trepidation as she whizzed around Barbados at top speeds in her younger days. And even in her older days, we had to hold on to her. The relationship was a two-way street, for Haram introduced her to the work of the talented and amazing M.S. Escher, E-S-C-H-E-R, a renowned Dutch graphic artist born in 1898, whose designs are absolutely amazing and they continue to delight Mom up to today. So you owe it to yourself to Google Escher, E-S-C-H-E-R, and share that delight in memory of Haram. Amazing.
Last page.
Yeah. I can recall driving from Brussels to take Mom to have a memorable lunch with Haram's parents in Holland, and being totally lost on the way back to Brussels. My mother told me, go so, and I went so. We were saved only by the fact that I had just begun to learn Dutch and was able to speak to people in the Flemish area who pointed me back to the right exit. Now, you may not know, if you're in the Flemish area in Belgium and you speak French, they don't talk to you. It's English or Dutch. Now, the Barkers are here. Many of the Barkers are here. Haram fully inserted himself into the expanded Barker family, participating uninhibitedly in all family events at the drop of a hat. He loved the famous Barker joke and guffaw sessions and loved the talented Barker singers, whether in formal session in a church as a choir or in a rowdy family gathering where laughter abounded in the midst of the music. He fit comfortably into the family. And I remember him gathering up little Aisha in his arms to comfort her when she was crying. He laughed when we laughed, and he cried when we cried. We truly became Haram's family. He was a European, a Dutchman, with a Caribbean, Bayesian soul. And in a similar manner to Haram, Peter has now brought the beautiful Andy from Croatia into the family. Hiram was able to visit them in Croatia, and in fact, I remember going up the Danube with Hiram, Andy, Mom, Peter in Budapest in 2017 when we went on our Orient Express escapade. Yes. Yolande thanks God for the lifelong friendship and love that she shared with Hiram up to the end. For the world beyond Barbados, to which he introduced her, Africa, Holland, Jamaica, and for the two precious products of that union, Tanya and Peter, and her precious granddaughter, Olivia. She has enjoyed seeing his warm and loving relationship with her family and the expanded family, which persisted throughout what would normally be challenging circumstances. She feels blessed that she was able to play her part, along with Tanya, in providing, and of course, Yvette, in providing a nurturing and caring environment for Hiram on his return to Barbados, and recalls with gratitude the many precious moments that she was able to spend with him. Hiram headed the Boer certainly enriched our lives, and we are grateful to Yolande for bringing him into our family circle. We will forever treasure the memories. May he rest in peace.
Thank you very much, Sonia and Yolande. Permit me also to acknowledge the presence with gratitude of my local members of my local church, the Breath of Life Church, who are here with us today, honoring the memory of Hiram. Incidentally, Hiram and his Barbadian connection. I don't know how many of you know that what we refer to in Barbados as the chups. Some people call it suck teeth. But that is an African expression. And very, very few Europeans at all ever chups. Any European that you hear express as chups is someone who was acculturated in the Caribbean and the descendants of a previous slave society. That's why Caucasian Barbadians, white Barbadians, can chups. But Englishmen don't chups. Dutchmen don't chups, except for Hiram. He learned his chups. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again, Sonia and Yolande, for those very important memories. We're now going to have a tribute by Yvonne. Oh, it's going to be delivered by Peter or Tanya, yes, by Yvonne. Thank you.
Okay. I love it. Thank you so much. So Yvonne Samuels, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it. But she did want to send a tribute for our dad. She thanks us for giving us the opportunity. So in reading her words, in 1983, when I met Hiram, he was employed as head of the Agronomy Research Unit of the Barbados Sugar Industries Limited. I worked with Hiram on some minor projects initially, but I was later employed by BSIL as a technical assistant in the unit. We continued to work together until he retired in 2011. Agriculture was in Hiram's DNA, and he dedicated himself to sugar cane agriculture. I remember him saying that cultivation time was his favorite because he loved to smell the unearthed soil. Hiram was hardworking. He never shied away from work or looked for someone else to do it for him. Working with limited resources was what he had to put up with for the majority of our journey. When setting up experiments in the field, we would leave early, return late, ensuring that we could accomplish all we needed to do. Haram always echoed that cooperation and collaboration were the keys to success of any project. The results of the research conducted were published. Haram took a hands-on approach as he would visit the farmers regularly, keeping a line of communication open with the farmers. In 1992, the BSIL went into receivership and employees were sent home. This was a challenging time for the industry. However, we continued to work during the transition without knowing if we would be paid each month. The variety testing station moved from the Ministry of Agriculture to Groves, and Dr. Sandra Bellamy, variety agronomist, joined us at Edgehill. With the amalgamation of Agronomy Research Unit and VTS, our new name became the Agronomy Research and Variety Testing Unit, the ARVTU. Haram was the first head unit of ARVTU. Haram's interests included hiking, cycling, gardening, playing piano, photography, and model railway train set. Over the years, my husband, Sam, and Haram would have spirited discussions over the industry and its future. The last time they saw each other was at the ARVTU party in 2020. This was also the last time Kamal, my dad's grandson, his godson, saw him, and he met Kamal's wife. Things said by persons who knew Haram to me, Yvonne. Haram was one of the nicest people I know. Haram was very hardworking. Haram was someone you could approach and talk to. He loved his vehicle to be clean. He was very respectful. I was pleased to call Haram my friend. He was not perfect, but he was a perfect gentleman. Haram, continue to rest in peace. Love, Yvonne.
I have here, thank you. I have here a little something written from Auntie Cecile about her and Uncle John's friendship with Daddy. Auntie Cecile writes, John and I have known Harm and his lovely family for about 30 years. We have had many, many enjoyable times together with lots of laughter and joy and sharing wonderful meals. I met Harm through hiking with the Duke of Edinburgh group on Sunday mornings. We started at 6 a.m. sharp and roamed hills, gullies, tracks, and coastlines for 3 hours. When Harm was the leader, he was like the Good Shepherd, walking back and forth, checking on all the stragglers. He took our complaints seriously and in good humor. We ragged him a lot. We stamped in puddles, wetting up each other like little children. We had wonderful, carefree times. John's claim to hiking was that he was not a frequent hiker, but a regular one, once a year. Our car group started as a games night with friends who had young toddlers, and we'd meet at their home to play various board games like Pictionary. Again, more eating and hilarity. They left, and another group of 6, and 8 of us started playing cards. The chosen game was Oh Hell, or Up and Down the River. This was introduced to us by John, who played it at university in the West Indies, Mona campus. It was apparently the student stress-relieving game. Oh Hell could be described as comical bridge, because it involves a trump card, bidding, and partners, if you want, and accurate scoring. But with the big difference, you do not have to take it seriously, as in bridge. It had a rotating venue between drinking, usually lots of red wine. Each person had his or her specialty, easy to dish. Harm was paper-thin delicious crepes, which she cooked on the spot and served with grated cheese, Vienna sausages, and maple syrup. Aunt Jemima, to be precise. Harm also introduced us to Godfrey Dama. Not a person, but his exclamation of frustration over some erroneous plays of his cards. We greatly miss you and everything we did together, Harm. As the song croons, those were the days, my friend. Those were the days, our friend. We thought they'd never end. And as John says, we came here today not to mourn you, Harm, but to celebrate your life. You were truly loved as your spirit hovers this morning amongst us. I hope you get a few laughs as usual, and we send you off to a glorious celestial hiking jaunts. John and Cecile. Thank you.
Thank you again for those very wonderful tributes. At this moment, again, permit me to acknowledge the presence of members or persons who worked with harm at the variety testing station, and also acknowledge the presence of some who were recognized from the cane breeding station at Grove St. George. Thank you for being here this morning. At this time, we're going to have a song by members of the Barker family. I'm going to join them. I'm not sure whether I will be singing, but I will join them. Yes. So we're inviting the Barker family to. Oh, they're singing from there. Well, I can go down there and start here. Yes, I did acknowledge I wasn't sure whether I'd be singing, but I did sing just now. I thought you heard my voice above, loud and clear. And that was very, very wonderful. In fact, I want to make it clear that when the time comes for departure, I want to be sure that I'll be singing for the Barker family then. Notice I said I want to be singing for the Barker family because it makes it abundantly clear that they have to go first. That's the only way I can. And thank you again, members of the Barker family, my family. At all the family funerals, we tend to have the Barkers sing a number for us. Not only funerals, time is reminding me, not only at funerals. Yes. We're almost at the end of our memorial service. There may be some who have come here today who might want to say a word or two. You're invited, if you so desire, to join us and just to come and say a word or two here. And then after that, we'll bring this event to a close. Come. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Ton Vlugman. I'm from Holland and I can choose. I met Harm about 35 years ago when I started working in Barbados in '87. We started a project on groundwater pollution risk assessment in the Bell-and-Hampton catchment. And part of the pollution risk were pesticides and fertilizer from agriculture. So then they told me, oh, there's a Dutchman working for the sugarcane industry. So we started talking and we became good friends ever since. He actually invited me once to his home, somewhere, St. George, I think it was, when he had this huge model train. No, I had a model train when I was a little boy. It was on a 4x8 plywood with some green and a hill, and I was pretty proud of that. So I went into his basement, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I think he had 5 or 6 of these 4x8s, and the amount of detail, real sand. He used it. I was a tricks man, because he had brand name and model train. I was a tricks man. He had a Marklin. Meccano. The M was right. It was, and I will never forget. He had real lights, street lights. And you know what he used for the upright? I will never time. What he used for the uprights were the copper. And when you have a pen, you have the ink in a tube. Some pens had a copper tube. And he used these for the upright. And every time I see a copper tube, I think of Harm's model trains. It was it was beyond my imagination. I couldn't believe the amount of dedication and time and skill. I was truly blown away. I forgot my own model train. Anyway, that was when I was a little boy. But later, we had common friends, Son and Cecile, Mike, Nathan, and Vivian, and this elderly lady whose names I forgot. Elsie. Miss Collymore. And we started playing cards at home, and we had a rotating system. And when we came to Harm's house, you remember, of course, he would also prepare food, pancakes with hot dogs. That was Harm's. I never thought it would be good, but it tasted wonderful, pancakes with hot dogs. And also he had aquaria, and that was an inspiration for me to start my own aquaria, and I got quite into that. But what he had in his model train, I had then later in my aquaria. So I was competing with him. Our ways parted because I was based I worked for Power and I was moving around, so I didn't live in Barbados for that many years. But I came back a few years ago, and Harm came back. He came back from Wales, and he came and visited us. Get on with it. So he asked me, so Tony said, should I go back to Wales or should I stay in Barbados? I didn't want to make that decision for him, but I told him, I think you should stay where you have friends and family that could take care of you when you might need it, because we're not getting younger. Not realizing that you would need it so soon. And now we miss him, for crying out loud.
Of course, it is clear that now there are two Dutchmen who can ships. It says something about the acculturation that takes place. Once you live in this country, yeah, you become Barbadian. Is there any other person? Yes, Lou. Just after her, yes. Aisha.
Hello, everyone. Initially, I wasn't going, sorry, my name is Aisha. Initially, I wasn't really going to say anything because there is no easy word to describe what Harm, who he is to me, because Peter and Tanya are my brother and sister, but they're my half-brother and sister, so theoretically, people would probably think that we shouldn't have such a close relationship, you know? But my memories are not the greatest. I always say I have a really awful sense of time, a real awful memory, all that kind of stuff. But, they mentioned the pancakes, and Peter would have mentioned how it has become a core part of who I am. The flavors that you learn and that you know become very important to you. And people will probably think that pancakes and hot dogs and cheese and pancake syrup, not even real maple syrup, pancake syrup, would be a ridiculous combination. And I feel I have a memory of thinking the very first time we had it, that sounds disgusting. But then I tried it, and to this day, I tell people about it. You don't know what you missing out, man. This thing tastes so good. And that's because of Harm. To this day, I do crude versions of pancakes that aren't as flat. I get the Vienna sausages and might just heat them up and just boil them and just slice up the cheese, or even grater it. But that flavor is so comforting because I remember being with family and friends and experiencing that. And I used to play piano. Well, I play piano. I've kind of lapsed, but I played piano. And I remember whenever Harm could, he would be at my piano recitals. And I remember a year he had the program, and he would write his thoughts of all the other performers at the time. And when it came to me, he had these exclamation points by the piece that I played, because he was so proud and he was so moved by the way that I did it. And I remember being younger, and the hammock and the tea, going over with my mom by his house for tea and having my first taste of rooibos at his house and loving it, and me being this little girl just drinking this rooibos tea and feeling real fancy, you know? And just memories of Jenga, just memories of being with, you know, people that care about you and that love you, regardless of what the relationship should be. I know that, like I said, there's no real word other than a dear friend. And like I said, I wasn't really gonna come up here and say anything, but I just wanted to just share my memories, and that I will never, ever forget him. And I appreciate how he welcomed me into his circle, because not many people would have. knowing, you know, the circumstances. But he didn't care. He was just there, always with a smile, and with that, you know, that how short he can be when he's like, let's hurry on with it. Just get on. It's okay. That kind of demeanor. So, and thank you all for coming. It was really wonderful to hear how much of an impact this Dutch guy came to Barbados and had on so many people. So thank you for coming, and I wish you all the best, and Harm, forever in my heart. I love you.
Thank you, Aisha. Yes, yes, sir. Maybe she just said, don't say goodbye.
Good morning. That mysterious moss came out of the gully between Black Bass and Sion Hill. I think we probably came across it Sunday morning going through there. And every now and again, Harm would say, I need a little bit more moss. Can we go Saturday? So there would be a group of us that would go. I see some here too. I heard the name Harm the Boer from my family, who used to be in agriculture in the early 80s. I had just come back from from studying in Holland, so I recognized it as a Dutch name. But I thought, what is a Dutchman doing here? So I met him in '88 on the first hike I went on, the first National Trust hike, Duke of Edinburgh hike, with Richard Goddard as the leader. And as time went on, Herman Lowe took over the leadership because Richard had to have his hip replaced. And then I got to take over the leadership from '92 or so onwards, till I left so I stopped going in probably 2008 or something like that. Harm was a conversationalist. He would move up and down the group. He would always make sure the last people were in touch. So I would get to a point, stop, and once Harm said, all right, everybody's here, we can go, I would go. Harm was that sort of person. He basically made sure that the group functioned well, kept them together. I was just a leader, happened to know him. I think I met Tom in the 90s. I was into mapping, and he gave me a lot of information on the maps of Barbados. He won in 10,000. Harm, I asked Harm for some information on field names when he first met him, because he worked with the cane breeding station. And he gave me all this, he gave me a good set of information. And I started to put them on. I got aerial photos, which I talked with Colin, and I understood how he made them. So I could reverse the process. So I got those field names from him. As time went on, I said, well, could I get the actual locations of the fields that Colin would have drawn? So he said, sure. So I went to the cane breeding station. I think I took some paper, and we copied all that he had, each plantation. So I was able then to take all of that information and put it into my maps. Harm was a great guy. David Marshall used to tease him all the time and ask him what does hot verdamme mean in Dutch? But I spent some time in Holland. I know it was not, it has something to do with God. I'm not sure, but he would always laugh it off, and it was good fun. Harm is really a human man, and I really enjoyed his company. It is so sad to hear of his passing. Dear Maisie, I'm very sorry for your loss. Pedro, Peter, Tanya, the whole family, really sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention.
All right. At this point, we just, oh yes, we have one other tribute.
Good morning. My name is Raphael Gibson. I am the leader of the medium group in the Barbados Hiking Association. I first met Harm with the Barbados National Trust in the early days of Colin Hudson and Richard Goddard and Herman Law and all of those guys. Now, in life, you meet people and without their saying anything, and you observe them for a little while, there is something special about them. And that was my first impression of Harm. And you got to remember, I met him in the bushes, in the gullies, different places. So if he can come over special there, you will know what he was if he's here. My first real conversation with him, he inquired about, he used to inquire, as John said earlier, he was a conversationist. So he would always inquire about you, he inquired about your welfare and everything. So I've always found him to be the consummate gentleman. He was always nice to everybody. It was said before, he goes up, down the group, check on everybody, make sure they was all right. And I thought that this was remarkable, you know, because most people nowadays, as we know in some groups, would forget that you're there. This was not Harm. He was always a gentleman. He was always respectful of everyone. And I'm going to draw two incidences to you. One morning we walked from Gun Hill Signal Station. I was not in his group, I was in another group, but we happened to pass him along the way. And his face didn't look like the Harm that I am accustomed seeing. So I said, Harm, what's going on? Well, there was another leader of that group, I will not mention his name, and there seemed to be some ruckus going on in there that Harm didn't take too kindly to. And he said to me, Raphael, I have never heard the kind of language on hiking that I heard this morning. And as long as I live, I would never walk with that gentleman again. Right, Cecile? Needless to say, the Barbados Hiking Association parted ways with that gentleman. And I am now, as I said before, the leader of the medium group. And now, Harm would come to me when I first started, and he would always be praising and thanking me. And I was like, does he have to do this every week? But this is the kind of person he was. And then I remember he was talking to somebody, I think it was Cecile, and he said that he had, his son was coming in on a tour ship in the port, and he had called the port, and he wanted to visit. He called the security, and the kind of runaround that he got, as we say nowadays, make it make sense, right? So I think Cecile was the one who said to him, well, you better ask Rafi because he works there. So he came to me and he asked me, I said, okay, no problem, I just need your name, I need the name of your son. And long story short, I arranged for that visit for him. For the next 8 weeks, every Sunday morning, this man would be seeking me out and thanking me along the way. And I was like, okay, it's over, it's done, we're cool. And next Sunday, it would go all over again. So that's just what I want to say about him. And then as I was sitting there and I was thinking about him, I remember something that Corey Kirkpatrick, a sports writer, wrote a couple of years ago. He says, I'm trying to remember it, he says, you cannot beg, borrow, or steal it. If you go out looking, you will not find it. It's not the school you attend, it's not the clothes you wear, it's not the house you live in, it is not the car you drive. It is called class. You either have it or you don't. From my experience, Harm the Boer had it. He was the consummate gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. You know, I mentioned that Ham learned to strips, and we discovered that there's another Dutchman who could strips too. I tried to learn a bit of Dutch, but the major problem was, and I want to be very careful here because I don't want to massacre the language. But Ham made it clear to me that you have to be able to hawk. You understand what we may say hawk, right? Everybody understands that? Well, once you understand, I think it's okay. You have to be able to hawk from here. And since I can't do that automatically, I never learned to speak Dutch. There are just two words that I learned, which, well, four. One was tot ziens, which meant goodbye, and it's appropriate for today. And the other one was when I came in the morning and I met somebody, Goedemorgen, and I learned those. That's all. I never learned anything else. Ham outdid me because he could chips, and then on the occasion when he was ready, he could speak Bajan too. Again, I want to thank you for being here. We've come to the end of our time here today. May the memories long continue. God bless you. Thank you.
If I might, I just want to add one more time from our hearts to yours. Very sad times, but I don't think I've ever felt so warm in my life. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.